Hey guys, it's Enigma Hood. So there is a channel on YouTube called The Fine Brothers, and basically their whole thing is having little kids, teenagers, and old people react to content made by other people. It's some of the laziest work I've ever seen on YouTube that's actually popular, and these videos, they get millions of hits. All it is just a bunch of random idiots reacting to content made by other people. So the other people, they actually make worthwhile content, whereas these guys, they just react to it. And that's somehow entertaining and amazing and worthy of millions of hits. But that's not what this video is about. One of their videos was where elders react to Grand Theft Auto 5. They made some irresponsible remarks that were utterly ignorant and demonstrably wrong. Now, I looked in the comment section and there was a dearth of comments that were actually criticizing what these old people were saying. There were no comments that were actually criticizing the content of that video. So that makes me really, really suspicious. You know, it makes me think that they're censoring their comment section and preventing people from actually responding to what these old people are saying. And I wrote a comment criticizing that. Criticizing some of the old people in that video for making inane, stupid, dumb fuck comments. And I checked the next day and that comment is nowhere to be seen. So I don't really know what happened. Maybe it might have been the automatic spam filter, which I know for a fact is a piece of shit. The more likely scenario that I'm guessing what happened is that they didn't like the fact that I was criticizing the people, the actors, whatever you want to call them, in that video for voicing their opinions. Apparently, I'm not allowed to disagree with the demonstrably wrong remarks that these old people were making. So, I decided to make a video instead. You know, if you're gonna be such an asshole about that you don't want people actually criticizing the people in your video who are doing nothing more than reacting to content made by other people, then fuck you, I'm gonna make a video about it. Basically, these people are trying to... They're doing two things that are annoying me. One, they are first trying to suggest that violent video games causes real-life violence, of which there's absolutely no scientific evidence for. And the second thing they're doing is they are basically they're mocking that which they do not understand. But let's just watch the video and see for ourselves.
Grand Theft Auto 5. Rockstar have tried to reimagine the open-world game in a number of ways. A sprawling,
well, that's a video game?
Modern Southern California.
I could get into Grand Theft Auto.
For the first time, the game features not one, but three would-be heroes.
Auto video game series before.
No, I don't think so.
No.
No, I hadn't.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it's just like one of the biggest video games, if they still call them video games, ever.
Yeah, I've watched it a little bit. It's pretty wild.
Where have you watched it?
You guys.
From what you saw, what does the point of the game seem to be?
I think there's lots of points.
A lot of people have blamed Grand Theft Auto for violent crimes in real life.
Yeah, and so was Judas Priest in Idaho, and they were sued, and blah, 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 blah.
Do you buy into that?
Oh, yes. Very much so, because kids are so impressionable. Take a look at the crime rate. People kill people in Chicago like it's a sport, like it's a video game.
Okay, so what this bitch is trying to say is that there is a correlation between violence, real-life violence, and video games. But what kind of evidence do they provide to suggest this link? Nothing. Okay, so her scientific evidence that video games causes violence is Chicago, and there's a lot of violence there, and get. That's her scientific evidence that video games causes violence. You know, call me a skeptic, but I don't really believe that. I don't think that's a very good argument. But you know what? Don't take my word for it. Why don't you listen to someone who's a lot smarter than these old fogies? Maybe he might be able to shed some light on the situation.
In 2007, Christopher Ferguson published a meta-analysis of the studies of violence in video games and found significant evidence of publication bias. In other words, a study that shows a link between violence and video games was much more likely to be published than a study that didn't, and this can skew our view of the literature. But let's delve further into the literature he reviewed. The link between video games and aggressive behavior is really non-existent. The link between video games and aggressive thoughts is more robust. But again, that's not the same thing. Dr. Ferguson offered a number of suggestions in his paper to strengthen future research in the area. Then he conducted such a study. He randomized 103 young adults to play no video game, a non-violent video game, a violent video game where they played the good guy, and a violent video game where they played the bad guy. Then they all had to do a frustration task. In other words, they had to engage in some activity which would make it more likely that they would get frustrated and perhaps aggressive. And his study showed no link between playing the games and aggression. But those kids who had a history of playing violent video games in real life had fewer hostile feelings and decreased depression during the frustration task. They had fewer hostile feelings and less depression. It's not easy to do good research in this area. That's partially because so many people play video games. Moreover, there are so many other things going on that unless you control for them, the associations shown are questionable. In 2012, researchers conducted a study of more than 6,500 eighth graders and went the extra mile to control for other factors. When they did, they found that the association between video games and behavior became much, much smaller. PewDiePie will be happy to know that the country of Sweden published their own review of the literature in 2012. They found 161 manuscripts describing 106 unique empirical studies. They found another 55 review articles of some sort. Of the 106 empirical studies, 71 were laboratory studies examining how playing video games affected aggression. But of course those studies couldn't measure actual aggression, just how people thought, and thoughts lasted from 4 to 30 minutes. They couldn't and didn't measure long-term actual behavior. 23 of the studies were cross-sectional surveys. Basically, they're surveys asking about video game playing and aggressive thoughts. Any links between those things, however, were washed out when other factors like mental state, family relationships, and self-esteem were considered as well. The remaining 12 studies were longitudinal in nature, were surveys collecting data repeatedly over time. 11 of them purportedly showed a connection between video games and aggression. But only 3 of the 12 had any data on family relationships and mental well-being. And of those 3, 2 of them found that those factors accounted for the relationship. In other words, the Swedes found that the research was flawed and that any connections were not to any actual violent behavior. No evidence at all. I'm not going to discount the fact that there's gun-related violence here in the United States, way more than anywhere else in the world. I'm also not going to discount the fact that here in the US, we spend billions of dollars on video games. But lots of countries spend more. Here's a chart of gun-related murders versus video game spending per person in developed countries. Can you see a relationship between video game spending and gun-related violence?
So there you have it. There's absolutely no link between violent video games and real-life violence. Which makes sense because you can find violence in all of our media. Books, music, movies, etc., etc. It's everywhere. You want to know why? Because people like violence. I have some ideas as to why this is, but if I were to guess, it's probably due to evolution. We evolved to enjoy violence. Males probably more so than females. You know, I did a whole video explaining why. I don't need to go into that again. But suffice to say, that is the trend that we see. In any kind of media, whether it's a novel or a movie or whatever, there has to be conflict of some kind on some level, even if it's not, it has nothing to do with violence, even if it's like a romantic comedy, there has to be conflict in it somewhere. Something has to go wrong because we enjoy things going wrong. Our lives are boring. We don't watch movies and engage in media to be reminded of real life. And that's why what this moron saying is bullshit.
Don't live through these people. Good gravy. It's fake.
Yes, it's fiction. People indulge in fiction for a reason. It's not supposed to be real. If it were real, there would be a big fucking problem. What a fucking moron he is. You stupid, dumb piece of shit. Fiction exists as an outlet for people's sadism. We enjoy violence. It's not something that's unique. Lots and lots of people enjoy violence, and this is a socially acceptable, non-violent way to indulge in violence. Some other fucks, mostly old people, actually kill animals for fun. It's called hunting. And that's a sport where actual animals, life forms, are being killed needlessly to satisfy sadistic urges.
What do you want to say to people out there that are very excited to play this game?
Shame on you.
Get a life.
Get a life. Like what? Like being on a video reacting to other people's content? Other people's work? That's such an accomplishment where you just sit there and pontificate rather pretentiously about morality and about social problems, about violence being caused by violent video games, providing no evidence, and then you have the temerity to say, get a life. You get a life, you fucking geezer piece of shit. Now, you know, you might think I'm going too hard on these guys. Fuck you, if that's what you think. I think that there might be some idea that you can't criticize old people. I said this before, I'll say this again, and I'll say it 1,000,000 times. I do not believe in special rights. I believe in equal rights. I don't care if you're 85 years old, or 18 years old, or 8 years old. I'm going to treat you the same way as I treat anyone else. And I'm going to give you the same level of common courtesy that I would give anyone else. But afterwards, based upon your positions, your arguments, your personality, how you treat me and other people, that will either earn you my respect or it will earn you my contempt. And some of the people in this video earned my contempt. Some of them, they didn't earn my respect, so to say, but I don't have anything against them and they're cool with me. So I don't care how old you are. If you are 85 years old or 75 years old, if you're an idiot, then you are a fucking idiot. This is one of the things I said in that comment. Age does not necessarily bring wisdom. What age can do is that you are living longer, so you can accumulate more information, which might make you wise. But it's not necessarily the case, and other people can accumulate much more information in a shorter period of time. So a younger person can be far more wise than an older person, and clearly some of these old people are fucking idiots. It's no surprise that old people are far more racist, sexist, and homophobic. I'm not saying that's necessarily the case with these fucks, but it is typically what we find in old people. They're retaining a lot of the old beliefs that are archaic and no longer have any place in our society. Because they lived in a time where they did very immoral things and believed in very immoral things. And they need to die off and make room for the newer generation that's more progressive. It's also no surprise that the vast majority of Bill O'Reilly's audience are old white men. In other words, fucking morons. So I'm not going to stereotype all old people as fucking idiots, but the things that I'm stating, that the vast majority of Bill O'Reilly's audience are old white men, and most racist, sexist, and homophobes are old fucks. Those statements are true. I don't hold anything back once you demonstrate stupidity. I don't care if you're an old geezer, I don't care if you're a young person. You say something stupid, you're gonna get it with both barrels. Don't like it, go fuck yourself. This is Enigma Hood signing off.